Let's talk now about the workplace. This is a little overview of the topics that we will talk about in this section. We are going to break them down for you, and we will talk about the basic requirements of your workspace so that you can provide professional services comfortably and efficiently. Let's think about where do you normally work? You have to think that your working space is important, and we have to have a dedicated space for that. Also, we will talk about ergonomics, which is the applied science concerned with the designing and arranging things people use so that the people and things interact most efficiently and safely. We will provide some tips and pointers on how to set up your office, and most importantly, we will talk a little bit about how to avoid injuries and other problems. So let's talk about the dedicated space. You have to think about where do you work? Where are you located? Do you work at home on your office, or do you work on an office building in a separated office? Um, so basically, you have to think about whether you have a dedicated space or you do not have that. So let's see what are the minimum requirements for to provide proper remote interpreting. As a dedicated space, if you work in an office with more people around you, you have to make sure that you are in a place where you can have some kind of privacy due to the nature of the interpreting we carry out. That could be either legal matters or medical matters. We need to provide that privacy, and you have to keep in mind that normally you are interpreting privileged communications. So also make sure that you are in a quiet place and that nobody can be listening to you. That's the reason why I'm emphasizing on a quiet place, because it is just the nature of our um, job that we have to take into account privileged communication. Also, the quietness is nice because that way you can have the best possible audio and you do not have to have added stress to your work. Also, um, uh, you know that that will allow you to provide a proper rendition without having to strain your ears at all. Um, Keep in mind again that you will be interpreting privilege and private matters. As you can see in this example, in this layout of this office, there are certain facilities where you could provide interpreting services. Um, but only on the stations where you see the interpreter icon. Also, uh, you will not like to provide remote interpreting services from a cubicle where not only people can hear you, but also think about the fact that that you are able to disturb other people because they might need to be concentrating on something. Now, if you work from home, here's the layout of a home, apartment, or a house. Try to procure yourself again a private environment, and try to have also dedicated space and somewhere where you can close the door. Here you can see in this house layout one room under the name of office. Probably that would be the most appropriate place, but you could also use what is under the name of bedroom if you were to have a proper setup as well. And make sure that during these times when you're interpreting that you are in a quiet area and there's no TV in the background or any other potential distractions. Let's talk now about your working station. That will include your desk and your chair at the very least, and probably some other items. So setting up your working station is important. Make sure that you take your time and set a proper desk and a proper chair so that you do not end up with injuries that could have been avoided to start with. And I'm talking about back injuries, neck injuries, and also tennis elbow, as we kind of call it. We have provided in the materials a link for videos from LNI where they provide you with more information on how to set up your working station. As for furniture, if you're going to have a desk, um, make sure that that desk suits your needs. It has to be one desk with a proper height, proper width, and depth, so you do not have any problems. Also, if you have to buy a desk, take advantage of the situation now and try to get one maybe with telescopic legs so you can raise up your workstation and you can stand up for some time if you need to. And but if you do not find any desk that you like this is what happened to me. For example, what I did, I ended up buying 4 legs and a table, and I set up my own desk the way I wanted it. Just make sure that when you are working on your workstation, you maintain a proper posture so you don't damage any of the muscles or your bones for that matter. Also, I like to talk about the chair. The chair needs to be a chair that is comfortable for you. Most likely should be adjustable. And you have to think about the height of the seat, the armrests, and the back. You have to be comfortable in that chair. So if you don't have one, just go ahead and try to get one that is nice for you. I will also recommend that your chair is light. These days they make everything lighter. So that when you move, when you're sitting down in your chair and you're moving, you don't put that much pressure in your back, so you don't damage your back. So we just saw how to set up our own workstation. So now let's see this workstation and let's talk a little bit about it. This workstation seems to be nicely set up. So this lady has a proper chair, proper desk. The computer is far away from her enough where she can see everything. However, she's not having a good posture. But before going into the posture, let me tell you something also about the desk. This desk is clean, and if you do not have a proper a desk properly cleaned, sorry, I will suggest you start decluttering your desk because that might be distracting. Now, going back to the posture of this lady working there, you see just immediately that she's not maintaining a proper posture. So she's gonna end up with probably a stiff neck. That will be the least of the injuries that she may have. And in the long run, she will have a problem with the muscles on the back and the neck, and she probably will end up having a lot of headaches if she continues like that. So this is not the proper posture for you to work while providing remote interpreting services. Now, we can see the same lady now having a proper posture where she is just using a telephone device with the one hand, and in the other hand she's able to take notes. That is okay as well. So that's the way she should be conducting her job. Now, for us, it's quite important as an interpreter to be able to have your hands free so you can take notes. And therefore, as Claudia mentioned before, during the part related to equipment, she was talking about getting yourself a good set of a good headset, so you are capable of having your head pretty free for that matter, and also that headset should have a microphone there, so you do not have to be worried about any other things. So that will enable you to move yourself freely if needed, if you need to stand up or sit down and then take notes at the same time. That would be ideal. Keep in mind that when we are doing remote interpreting, sometimes depending on the platform that we are using, we might need to have a couple of headsets. And this is kind of mind blowing, but this will look something like that. So I know this is not an interpret picture. This was, I believe, a football coach or something, but that was a good example of how you would look like if you don't choose your proper set. So you have to be capable of juggling both headsets. So try to find something that is comfortable for you. Also, I would like to mention that posture is not only to avoid musculoskeletal injuries, but also with a good posture, you can project your voice better, and therefore your voice will suffer much less. Keep in mind that you will need to keep good hydration, and also when you've done interpreting, you should exercise a little bit just for your own sanity. And sometimes it's very good to walk away and disconnect completely. Let's continue with more ergonomics. So now, due to the nature of our work, interpreting, you already know that requires a really heavy cognitive load. Multitasking could be very satisfying at first, but when you multitask, you're not paying 100% of attention to every single task you carry out. So now we know that interpreting remotely is more demanding because you're not only carrying out the gymnastics proper of, say, simultaneous interpreting or consecutive interpreting or sight translation, but you also have to pay attention to everything that is needed for the proper communication. It requires more effort, and you can only do that for so long. So, in order to keep our sanity, I will recommend you to leave some time in between appointments because at the end of the day, we're not Superman or Superwoman. Another problem that could cause us, in particular, the remote interpreting mode, could be hearing loss in the long run. As we talked about before, the headphone selection is very important. Selecting the right headphone is also extremely vital to prevent hearing loss and tinnitus with prolonged use. Headphones with noise cancellation features are best if you have to use them for prolonged periods of time. These headphones cut off any external sounds and drop down the decibel levels of sound significantly. Keep in mind that if you do not use the proper headset, you can end up having headaches, nausea that could lead to fatigue, anxiety, even your sleep patterns could be altered, and ultimately it can lead to depression. So this is something that you will have to take care of pretty soon when you are providing remote interpreting services. The cell phone headsets are good for cell phone, and that's it. But please do not use them when you are providing interpreting services. It will only end up damaging your hearing. I wanted to talk a little bit also about the voice. We know that knowing how to project a voice is important because if you project your voice properly, you do not have to force anything. You will help your vocal cords and you will not cause any injury to yourself. So if you don't know very well how to project your voice, you can take classes on that or watch tutorials, just so you know that you're using your diaphragm to push the air out. So you don't have to force your voice sometimes, and learn how to um, kind of whisper without forcing your vocal cords sometimes is necessary. Also, what you could do if you want every day, just carry out some warm-up exercises and breathing exercises. So that way you take care of that uh, um, voice that is so precious for us. Now let's keep on talking about our workplace. I mentioned before that it has to be a quiet place, and that's correct. We do not have to have children playing in the background or crying. No pets, because pets end up making some kind of noise, barking or meowing, something like that. Who knows? Not disrupting noises. So if there's construction or something going on in your garden, just try to find a quieter place. So that way you don't have to be so stressed out about it. Also, we already talked about the fact that you have to be in a private area, because just think about when you work in other venues, you try to be in some kind of semi-private area so nobody can hear your conversation or your rendition very yet. Um, but you have to think and keep in mind that while you're providing remote interpreter services, this is also important. The topics that you will be interpreting are confidential topics, so you cannot discuss this with anybody. Keep in mind that, as I mentioned before, these are legal and medical related matters, and these are private and privileged conversations. Another aspect that we have to take into account when we're providing interpreting services remotely is the professional looking background. Sometimes your client may ask you to be seen, so you will need to appear on a screen. So some of the advices that we have for you are that you should not have many personal items, because that could cause somewhat of a distraction. And so your background should be some kind of neutral background if possible. Also, another item that is very important is the lighting. And you have to have proper lighting for that, which means that you will have to have a source of light in front of you, so everybody in the other side of the web-based event can see your face properly. Do not place light behind you, because that will create the opposite effect. Then you will be only like a dark shade there, and that would not be that comfortable for the other parties. There's some platforms, web platforms better yet, that will allow you to choose a neutral background or blur the background. So take advantage of those. As we mentioned before in the platforms, you can download the app of the platforms and play with it a little bit, so you are ready to go whenever you have to provide interpreting services, whatever, any given time. Also, we keep on saying that interpreting in the car is not the appropriate thing to do unless it's just last resort, basically. It's not ideal. It doesn't provide a professional looking background, and if you must do that, because there's no other way around it, just make sure you park in a quiet place and inform the parties, because it's not the most desirable area. Now, I was showing the picture of a colleague of ours that is having a home office, and on the left side you can see uh, her office with all the reference books she has and all the items that she uses for her daily basis job. She didn't like her background a lot, so she came up with a very nice and very inexpensive solution for that. She put on the ceiling a screen, like a window treatment, if you want to call it like that. And now she has control of her background. She doesn't have to depend on the platform offering that option. So she just pulls that down and voila, she's got a perfectly neutral, professional looking background. So some of the ideas that people may use are like curtains, dividers, something like that. If you have a very cluttered background in your office, you may want to choose that option as well. Now I have a little exercise for you, and I want you to think about this a little bit when you are going to work next time. So I just presented you with four pictures there, four working stations, right? And I would like you to see or to make a list of positive and negative points of these working stations. I want you to determine if you are able to work in that particular station and why. So I would like you to analyze what is the background, what is the light, noise level, privacy, and equipment. So this is my little exercise for you. And with that, I will ask Claudia to continue with the next module. Thank you very much. Bye.